كم هاي في كذا طفخ الصوت نايم لنا فاهم كم نقطة
Okay, since we can't pay you, since you're volunteers, we do provide other kinds of support. So clearly training, and we have ongoing training, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, pre-service training, that's our 40 hours before you start. We think it's fabulous. Actually, Hennepin County is the only county in the state of Minnesota that we do all of our own training. All of the other counties do training with the state of Minnesota, so there's state people who come in and do parts of the training. We do our own training, our own social worker panels, our own attorney panels, our own guardians on the last night to talk about the program. So we're very proud of the extra work we put in to do the whole program in-house. So during training, we get a big, thick manual, so 2 to 3 inches, and it's everything you need to know. Everything from the state and federal statutes to what to do in certain situations. All 10 of those chapters of the curriculum are in there. Resources about where to go for a lot of those services. What are the main centers to deal with all the different issues that families are dealing with, all phone numbers and social workers and judges' names, and all this stuff is in a big manual. It's yours to keep. Okay, case consultation. So in my office, there are 5 supervisors or coordinators is what we call them. I'm the only guardian ad litem volunteer coordinator, and that means that I'm not in the office every day because I'm out doing presentations like this. So guess what? I get to take off Tuesday morning since I'm working Saturday night. But there are 4 people in the office who are there every day, pretty much 9 to 5, and each of those 4 people supervises all of our volunteers. So Kelly, Vic, or Marty would be the people who would be looking at your court reports, would be meeting with you when you have concerns about a case, would be facilitating things if a social worker or another party is not returning your calls. They're the people, our paid staff, who are there to help you. And my coordinator, because even though I know a lot, I don't know everything, my coordinator is one of the 2 Kellys on my case. So even I need help. Okay, and then after training is over, we have a requirement of 12 additional hours of training all of our volunteers need to do every year. We want to make sure you're staying up to date on the rules and regulations and having opportunities to learn more information, especially if you're in a program a long time and you get to an area of specialty. Some of our volunteers like working with teenagers, so you're not going to go to trainings about how to deal with older kids. Some of our people, again, are interested in the drug or alcohol issues, educational issues, medical issues. So we make sure that we both offer training in-house. So we have training second Wednesdays every month during the school year, so that's between September and May. And then we have an annual conference, which is 3 days of Mystic Lake Casino, and we don't have to gamble, but the training is there, at least it was last year. 3 days of training on a host of subjects. We also alert people through email about other kinds of free trainings that either the state of Minnesota is offering, Hennepin County offers, or other not-for-profit agencies that we work with throughout the year. And we're encouraged to go to those to make sure that you get those 12 hours of training after the main training that we do for new guardians. And we have a newsletter that we do quarterly with information about our program. And then we send out emails as things are coming up. So it's going to be, since it's an election year, there's more information about who our candidates are, who are more supportive maybe of our program or not, or other kinds of ways that our volunteers can get involved in terms of making sure that we elect officials that have children and families on the top of their agendas. So we send out those kinds of emails as well. And then the only money you'll ever see from us is parking or mileage reimbursement. So once you're assigned your first case, whenever you're going to visit the family or the social workers or going to a meeting, coming to our office for court, all of those miles on your car are reimbursed. And if you have to pay any fees at meters or at a parking lot, those are also reimbursed on a monthly form.
waxay شيء waxay tii barnaamijkan ma aha wax dhaqaale ah ama lacag deynta dadka gaadhay aan siinaya ma jiro waana tabar laakiin waxay tii waxyaabaha ku saacido waxa ka mid ah dadka inaan siino tababarka friiga ah oo qofku uu baranayo cilmigaas waxaan kaloo saacidayo shaqaale full time oo ka caawinaya tusaale ahaan qofka gaadhayka ah duu baahan in laga caawiyo sidii loo qoraa report markuu qorayo waxaa ka caawinaya shaqaale full time ah oo iyagu lacag qaata oo maxkamadda jooga ayaa iyagu ka caawin doona waxay kaloo sheegtay inay xitaa jiraan dad iyaguna diyaar waa inay haddii qofku u baahdo consultation ama u baahdo ciduu la tashado arrin kala tashado ama uu u baahdo qofkaas in isaga u dhisana siiyo talooyin dheeraada dadkaas oo diyaar waxay kaloo sheegtay in yani qofka la siin doono waxbarasho joogto ah haddii uu rabo inuu maaragtay qofkaas sii korsado cilmigiisa tababaro badan oo free aan bixinaa oo state bixiyaa waxaan kaloo bixinaa way tiri newspaperaan dadka u dirnaa maaragtay 3 bilood mar ay ka helayaan warbixino fara badan oo xitaa ku saabsan dadka madaxdeeda soo dooranayo yaa danaynaya carruurta muhiimadooda waxay tiri waxa keliya ee aan odhan karo dhaqaale ee dadka aan yani siino waxa weeye qofku markuu gaariga soconaa meesha yimaado kale baarkinka lacagta ku bixiyo kale waa la siinaya baarkinka kalaha $10 ku baarkinaya $5 ku baarkinaysa waa la siinaya haddii intuu gaarigiisa ka haysto ilmaha markuu booqanayo meelish yani intii uu socday qofkaan waxaa laga yani gaasi baa laga saacideeya labadaas waxyaabood oo keliya ayaan ka caawinaynaa dhaqaale ahaan laakiin programku waa program maaragtay tabaruc ah oo ku shaqeeya free
Talked about this a little bit before, but as of right now, both African Americans and Native American children are what we call overrepresented in child protection. So most of the cases are African American families. And we talked about this earlier about that sometimes it's a lot easier for families or the kids to get to talk to somebody who looks like them or may understand their situation. So we absolutely are trying to work on that in terms of our program. And bilingualism, we need that. So clearly, a lot of you are, almost all of you are, so you will qualify in terms of Somali culture. In terms of people whose first language is not English, the main requirement we have is that you're comfortable both writing and speaking in English, because you're going to have to stand up and talk to the judge, and you're going to have to write a court report. Some court dates require a court report, some do not. If it's a regular hearing, that requires a court report, but there's also special hearings, which is either a trial or a pre-trial in a case. And because those are more legal and things can change minute by minute, we don't have our volunteers do court reports then, because things are changing right outside the courtroom. We don't want you to be held to a piece of paper that you wrote last week or 2 days ago. So at those times, there's not a court report required, but for regular review hearings, you need to be able to write those and be comfortable submitting those to the judge.
inka badan half dadka la caawiyo carruurta programyada ay soo wajahaan waxay u badan yihiin African American inka badan half وحكروا مهمة أما في عن المعه في عن قف قالوا قال أما لا دعنا أي كفي عنك تسارع دور يعني أما قف كويس يساعد أما قف المعنى أغني قانا وحكروا شيء إن لو باهي وين لو قبو ده تكوها للغض الوقضات وأيو هذا تساعد سبعين شوكرات يوم ده يوم نكوها للوقضات أفريقيا نعم بغنية أنا مرنا هلقا وحكيت شنا جاب وين باكروا إني ده جاي لين كاي سيد هرو وشرتي أيريهم أنا يجربه هذا الصومالي وكله إلى حد ما يجربه يعني خوف ما أنت لو إني هبل أنا هبلاي بروجرام وكذا وجاينا مركب باهي باللغة تركي كمان اللغة ولا اللغة كمان سلام دي الصومالي هاي وقصر أفريقيا هاي ورما هاي ورما كله نمر بدل بسين وكلامات أو شيء يقول دوا وتدوا في الزريعة مركب سؤال كمان ما إلا هذا تصرف باهي باكتشف مركب كذا بعدين سيروح لو باهي لا تشتغل عروفين أسرة الحين
So clearly, lots of kids waiting. Most weeks in our office we get between Monday and Friday. In terms of new court cases coming in, we have an average of 2 to 3 a day. Some days, one of our staff members goes up at 1:30. You might come down with 6 cases, or 2 cases, sometimes 3 cases. But on average, 2 or 3 a day are coming in. One of the jokes I tell, which is actually kind of serious, is that other than maybe being a volunteer fireman where you're running into a burning building, this is one of the hardest volunteer jobs we're actually ever going to ask to do. Partly because really, in a lot of ways, these children and these families' lives are in your hands and in the balance in terms of this recommendation you're making, which will affect their lives and futures, and honestly, intergenerationally, we're affecting families in these decisions we're making. So that's a huge responsibility. And the truth of the matter is that we have a broken system. That we have a system that is racist and classist and a lot of bad other things about the system that's sometimes not very supportive of families or children. And sometimes it's very difficult to do this work in a broken system. And our volunteers feel that sometimes in ways that other people in the system don't, partly because they don't necessarily feel empowered to change it. We're not the ones necessarily that are changing the policy or practice. That's the social workers or the judges or the legislature, or the state capitol. So a lot of times it's hard work, but when families come back together, or when kids who other people at the table may say are lost already, and they find themselves, or we help them get found, or there's a good solution to a case, it makes it all worth it. So it's very hard work we're asking you to do, and we don't pretend about that. But the rewards, especially when things go well for these families and these children and these families are reunited and are happy, it's really priceless. So please sign up. I am a recruiter after all.
واي وحسنا إن القفص السياسيون اللي ما هو برنامج مقابل الموضوع واحد وحين سوية عروف رمضان يلا رمضان يصير توقيع يوم هو وعروي من سوية مركا واحد تري فضلا يعني هو بيكو تاريخ ولا يربع حتى ولا سوية واحد كروتري أنت تكون حواليه ليا حتى أنا هو الصوماليين يعني وحكينا الساعة 10 في رمضان أخذ كلامي في حفص رمضان مركب صراحة كويس المرة قاعدة وكذا وفاهم الكعلي إنه هكذا سبحان كذا 10 في رمضان آخر اللي يأتون كذا مركب كاسة كقيمة بدل ما عكس أول السيو يا كاسة مركب وحوي مركب وكل وين واحد نصور شيء كمان يدوب هو دريم سنة أنا ما أنت المحكمة التقيل اللي فاهم هذا فاهم كوري ولا هذا لا يمكن تقيل إيش هو موجود وحنا محامي إيش وحنا في الدرس كله هو بقول أو قف وحنا في بداية ويوي أي يوي هذا يروح يعني دكتور بعد ما يلويس هاي تقول الفاميلي غير قاضي عروض الفاميلي صار الفاميلي فرق الله شيء وقاضي هو شو هو شغله الشيء وحنقول كوا حبيبتي تتصل بدل ما حبيبتي وحنصور كل قف وصوالي بارنو ورقعي بايماري هو يقول لك إنه واحد صغير الفاميلي السبين الفحاكة دراسه إنه واحد ميزاننا إن الإله قدتي أو شغله إله واحد راسله أخذني إلى دنيا عروسة أنا يكون عندي عاقل ما هذا TC BTC أخذوا اللي وديني هي ما يعرف يا هذا كلامي مركز تاسنا وتاس هذا البلاد كورونا سيدي ما أعرف قصة سيدي ولا My sister has a question. أيوة. أيوة. هكذا أقول. كم مرة سمعت؟
بسم الله. مشاهدة ومقالة أنا لو أقول شيء يعني عندك سؤال إمامك لك هذا المكان يعني زي ما هدول وحقات وكذا عادي وحقات وكذا دي وحلو الصماء هو كان عميمها كلا والدكم شقيسته لما قاته وهدي واحدة تقول عن دولة مصروف الجيش لكن يبي دولة وحقاتها عارف الجريء ودولة يعني وحقاتها مغرب الشكاس وحبان الشرق اليوم بدل نحوي ما حدا مثل ما لقيت هذه على دكتور اليوم دي أي واحد عاجبك كلا أنا أحتاج ونكون أطلع زين كلام عامل كلام لا وإحنا نقول دي كلام محكمة وسائل كلام راد أفكار
Okay, in terms of the first question, and both of these aren't my purview. I don't know county statistics about where children are coming from in terms of the child protection piece. But what we do know is that the majority of the families who are in child protection are poor. Whether or not they're on public assistance at this time is unknown to me. I can speak personally to my 9 cases. 3 of the families were on public assistance. 2 of the children had SSI benefits which were separate, but in my case, the majority of families did not. They were not on welfare. I don't know statistically, and I can try to get that information from the county, but absolutely, most of our families are poor because they qualify for public defenders. And they have to have below a minimum income requirement to receive representation from the Hennepin County Attorney's Office and Public Defender's Office, rather than being able to afford a private attorney in child protection cases. And I'm pretty sure sure that it's like less than 5% of our families can actually afford a private attorney. So there definitely is a correlation with poverty. I can't speak to public assistances beyond my own cases that I have knowledge of. In terms of liability when children are in your care, as a foster parent, it's different than if you are otherwise a legal guardian. So when you are a foster parent, the children are actually still under county protection. So you do have some liabilities there. When you are a private citizen and you have made an arrangement in family court to become a legal guardian, then you are the same level responsible for the children as the birth parents. So that's kind of the difference. But while you're a foster parent and the county is actually really in charge of the children, you do have some protections. For our guardians ad litem on the case, and we're only guardians for the court case. So the kids never live with us, we just visit them either in foster care, at their birth home, or maybe at a facility if they're not at either of those places. There's actually a law called As-Saddique, which means we as guardians cannot be sued by either the social workers, the counties, the judges, birth parents, foster parents, or anybody else while we are in commission of this work. We are protected as CASAs, as court-appointed advocates, under a federal law.
waxay tiri su-aasha hore oo ah walaashay waxay su-aasha iga fahamteen walaalo waxay tiri dadka yani inaan si kala dhaho dowladdu waa saacido miyaa carruurooda daba qaadintooda sidaas ma oran waxay tiri anigu runtii arrintaas ma ogi bay tiri laakiin haddii aan ka hadlo bay tiri khibradeyda 9 keysaan hayay bay tiri 2 ka mid ah waxay qaadanayeen bay tiri SSI صدق كم لنا واحد قالني بيتي يعني وصل بالقانونية أنت ترى ما قالني يعني تفسع عليها مرة واحد تري ذات كبرة واحد تري واحد درسنا هي إن أريد ما تتعذر على الشخص يعني قالوا هو سيء يعني أنت كبري قالوا هو سيء لكن واحد تري قالوا يعني مشي كرويتي لكن ما بال عن بالتان وخصوصا على الناس وذلك وحيدوتي بدنا وذلك أمره ساعد أنت بدنا وذلك حقوله إنه هرام قرين عقل عام من سلوية فريق هرام وكانوا سيء لكن ذلك حوالي إنهم كلهم توصيل كمان يخص من اللي فيه وخلاص وحكاية وقلت الشن أيام يعني تتعودنا إن اللي برايفة إيه وخسران وقالوا مسمعين وقلت الشن هل خلال سؤال شكل ورال ويسكت أنا محمد سوري هو إنت أنا هوش كنت في بالك مين شو قالوا أنا يعني من راعي واحد تري marka dadka programka gaadinka waxuu waafisi ilmihii ama ha joogo meel dowladda u samaysay ama waalidkii laga haayay horta programka dadka gaadinka waxay wada booqayaal ilmihii iyagu gurigooda kuma hayaan mashaaqisa like as gadi we are physically but we don't have the capacity of the child in our house marka ilmihii inuu qof ma hayo سواء دي واجب هي هو بوغانيسا وسويسا مركا تاس مارتي يعني دي كتير ما كان مشكلة كتير فوسا كنا وبوغانيسا مركا دي هو مسؤولية هذا والمسؤولية دي وين ما هنقول كثير لكن هي مرة أقول بقول وجهه هذا ولا فهم سمع لكن واحد يقول إن فوسا كان فوسا بعد وكبر والدك إنها يسوق مركح كجراني وإنها يكون يسوق ساحلي وكذا وكذا هذا واحد كوني لا هي برنامج كماموري أو يعني بروتكشن ولا يعني هو ولا هو هذا الإعلامي لكن برنامج كان يقول شو عندنا دم وما راح عندنا محكمة waxay ku jirtaa full protection. Inta laga raadin wadaadaan marar baad
disproportionality, which is this over-representation of families of color in the system. And they don't have any necessary really good answers. I think that some of it is that there is bias, absolutely there is. As I said, class bias and race bias in terms of who are the decision makers. They don't look like these families. There is a bit, they don't understand really what's going on. There is a bit of a cultural bias as well. Some of it, in terms of the reality of where the kids are coming from, is geography. Most of our families of color live in the cities, and that most of the mandated reporters are in the cities. And if you're looking as an example of the hospitals, in terms of the feeder hospitals in Hennepin County to child protection, are not Mercy Hospital or the suburban hospitals where more of the European Americans live. HCMC, Abbott, Children's, North Memorial. That's where more of the people of color live. So some of it is just based upon geography. I don't have some of those bigger answers. There are lots of different committees that are working on it, but there is acknowledged over-representation of families of color, and state and local officials and Hennepin County officials are working on it. Whether they're working on it fast enough or well enough is a whole other question, but they are looking at those things. In terms of what we can do is join those committees or ask those questions, raise it in more public forums. I'm on a couple of, I used to be on a couple of different committees, both the state committee and the local committee looking at those issues and really bringing our voice to the table about, suggestions.